Good evening. This is a meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. The time is 7 p.m. and the date is April 12th. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. The board consists of 5 members and 2 alternates, the alternates taking full part in the discussions and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflict of interest. Present tonight are members Robert DeLocke, Joe Kraus, Kelly Sauber, Kay Towsley, and alternate Aaron Thomas. I'm Lisa Carson, the chair. Also present is zoning administrator, Mr. David Riggs. At this time, I invite you to view a pre-recorded video on the rules and procedures of the board. The Athens Board of Zoning Appeals operates according to the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. The zoning administrator or secretary will state the basis of the objection and any applicable facts or conditions pertaining to the case. The appellant or their representative will give reason why the appeal should be viewed favorably. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard. If necessary, the appellant or their representative will offer concluding, summary, or rebuttal remarks. Testimony from the floor shall be closed. The board will deliberate and render a decision. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.03b, the board has power to grant variances from the strict application of the code, provided the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, the spirit of the code is observed, public safety and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.10c, variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board makes specific findings of fact based directly on the particular evidence presented to it, that the standards and conditions imposed in this title, if applicable, have been met by the applicant. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, a literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. Preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while a granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity. Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. Absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. Not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which variance is sought, one or the other, or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. Any person, resident, or officer, department, or appointed body of the City of Athens, aggrieved by a decision of the board, may petition the Athens County Court of Common Pleas concerning the illegality of the decision. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the decision of the board to the applicant. Thank you. First, 750 East State Street, the second, 206 North Columbus Road, and the third at 234 West Washington Street. The board is required to take testimony under oath. Would anyone wishing to speak concerning any item on the agenda please stand? That's it. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Okay, case 2203V, 750 East State Street. The appellant is requesting a variance from Athens City Code 2303-13I1 little I for wall mount signs. Sign A has a 0 feet right side setback where 1 foot is required, and sign B has a 0 feet left side setback where 1 foot is required. Mr. Riggs, can you clarify for us, because there was a little bit of confusion in the explanation provided to us, so they weren't quite sure, it seemed, about the need for setback.
Yeah, so the code is part of the sign regulations for the city, and what it states is that this is a wall-mounted sign, and that it says that there needs to be setbacks from the end of the wall or from the party wall line, and that's where we kind of look at a structure and see where you can put a sign. You have these two parapets that stick out, and the edge of that we've always considered to be a party wall line. And the code actually says that the party wall line needs to be set back, the sign needs to be set back from that party wall line at least 10%, which in our case is going to be about a foot. And so we refuse the permit based on that piece of the code, which is what I called out, ACC 230313 I1I.
Okay. Does anyone have questions for the code director?
I just want to make sure I understand. If I look at the visual of the building, so it's where the sign is currently wanting to be put up against.
So you see there's a sign in the center, and there's a party wall line that we describe as these parapet walls. So the one in the center has a setback from the left side of that parapet and from the right side of the parapet. The proposed signs have a more than enough setback from the outside wall, but they also need to be set back inside of this party line by a foot or 10% of the sign as described in the code.
So that would end up pretty much centering it within that.
That's correct, yeah.
And they're wanting it to be flush with
the building, yes.
Party wall, okay.
Yeah.
We will hear from the appellant. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is James Wonke. I am a manager, representative of the existing business at the structure, and also the owner and founding member of the second proposed sign, which is Athens General Contracting, LLC. I am registering to be a contractor within the city of Athens. I've obtained necessary bond and insurance to do so, and I'll be submitting my paperwork pending the result of this zoning appeal hearing, and any future direction we may go with it regarding the different outcomes that we might arrive to at the end of this meeting. Just to clarify some of the questions that I had as well for Director Riggs, and I think I got a little bit of clarity there. I originally expected this sign permit to get denied because of the lack of a 10% setback on the left and right outcrops. I believe that it had met the conditions on the right side because of the addition structures that were on the east-facing wall. But that I knew that the minimum setback on the left side would be 22 inches, which isn't the 10% required. I understand what he was saying about the parapets or parting walls. There's two main concrete supports that, because of the size of the central window, that basically hold up the second floor. And that's all they are. There's no interior wall that coordinates with that. They're just two giant supports. And due to the existing layout of that front-facing wall, there's a lot of columns and rows. It's a historical building. From what I can tell, the back part of that structure built sometime in the 1920s. My understanding, it was originally an airplane hangar, then became some type of a Athens skating rink. And then sometime in 1945, we found the signatures in the rafters that indicated that they built the front part of that building. And it was a Chevrolet dealership, GM, for approximately 70 years or so. Before my uncle purchased the property a year and a half ago. And so I guess the reason that I'm asking for a variance is because given the contours of the existing structure and not really wanting to change anything around with that, we kind of formatted these signs in what we felt was the most aesthetically pleasing way that fits within the contours of that building in a clean and efficient manner. It fills the available space, which is limited by the columns and rows of the outcrop structure. Most of that space on the front-facing wall, other than the center, which was not available to me for use as a sign because of future plans that may be used for some other type of signage for the existing business. I just run an office out of the front of that building, and we obtained a use permit from the code office to that end about a month ago. And so, it fits the available space, most of which is unusable for a legible sign, and within the margins of the east side, but not the west. And as far as the 7 conditions that you guys are able to consider, I do believe that there is an absence of detriment. It doesn't hurt anybody what I'm asking for. It does allow the reasonable use of that property for front-facing signage on State Street. It won't impair the use of that property in a way that detrimentally affects the neighbors. And as far as equal property rights, I know that Steak and Shake right across the street basically has corner-to-corner graphics all the way along their wall, and it's got their name and everything else. So I don't think, this is just our first attempt to try and get this approved because we think it's what will look best and be in the best interest of the community. So that's about all I have to say.
Thanks. Can you give us your address for the record?
55 North Court Street.
Okay. I'm afraid I haven't gone and looked at the building. Are the signs already up?
Mm-mm.
Can you explain to me what difference it makes whether they're centered or flush? I mean, I don't understand. Aesthetically, personally, I think centered would look better, but
So I guess
why is this important?
I guess I was not aware of the interior setback that had to be met, so we were just trying to fill the top vertical space as best as we could. That would allow us to have a visible sign from the street in a way that looked good with the building. I think having it tucked away in the corner might have the added utility of not being as prone to, being blown away by the wind. We've had that issue with a couple of our signs where they get kind of caught up or ripped off or partially blown away for our larger one out there.
Thoughts?
I have a
Questions?
question. So for Mr. Riggs, if he moves it over 12 inches to the center, that still give him 11 to 21 inches from the edge.
It's close enough, yeah. 10% is really about 10 inches, so we went to the nearest foot. He actually has 22 inches
Right.
there, so
Yeah,
if he were to center that without changing the size of the proposed signs,
That
it
put
would
him in.
meet the code, yes.
I guess I don't have an issue with that. I don't think my uncle would have an issue with that, with his 2 signs. That would work.
So if he did that,
You won't have to.
Yeah, it's just those inside lines. He's right up against the that party wall. If he were to move it and center it, it would meet the code.
Just
So
put the difference.
I originally, up until this point, when I heard the chair discussing it with Mr. Riggs, I thought that the issue was the exterior setback, not the interior setback. So I guess that is amenable to us. So.
Okay.
then you don't have to have us vote.
Yeah.
Do we have to what?
I said, then you don't have to have us vote if he.
No, I mean, if that will be, is that something that you would be willing to?
work, yeah.
You would need to rescind your application
Could-
and
could-
resubmit. It might be simpler to vote on it, and then he could just resubmit his sign permit.
I was
sorry.
going to suggest a conditional use so that I could get an approval today. So on the condition that I meet that 1 foot setback, you guys vote in favor of my sign so that I don't have to pay another fee.
Yeah, we wouldn't charge you again anyway, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
That seems fine. I mean, you want to go ahead and rescind the thing then, and you can go ahead and,
So you can't approve a variance if he's agreed to not need a variance.
right,
So what we'd want to do is, if I could suggest, maybe what you might want to do is deny his appeal, and then he can resubmit. We wouldn't charge him an extra fee. He could
Okay.
resubmit with those signs centered, and we'd get it turned around as quick as we could for you.
Sure.
okay. So we don't have to go through the findings, we just vote?
You should go through the
We
findings.
would need to go to? Okay. Even though he's agreed to,
Well, it's before you now to make a decision.
okay. So this is fine with you if we go ahead and,
So, I mean, if you would consider to vote as I had suggested, if it wouldn't hurt anything,
okay.
and you guys weren't opposed to it, then I wouldn't mind going with our original plan.
Okay.
And I guess if you deny it anyways, I have alternate means to,
Yeah, that sounds good.
get it approved.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions for the appellant or for Mr. Riggs? Thanks. That's probably all we need from you.
Okay.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak? I can't remember the order of these things.
David, do you have something to say? You look like you want to say something.
Oh, he can always say something.
So you have a appeal to the zoning code before you. You'll have to decide what to do with that appeal.
Okay. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Does anyone present wish to speak in general comment? Does anyone present wish to speak in opposition to the request? All right, I'll close the floor and we will discuss findings. Yeah, someone needs to make a motion. Thanks. Who'd like to make a motion?
I will. I move to grant a variance to the property at 750 East State Street from ACC 230313 I1I for 2 wall mount signs where sign A has a 0-foot right side setback where 1 foot is required, and sign B has a 0-foot left side setback where 1 foot is required.
I second. Sorry. I second.
No, thanks. Excellent. Okay, so let's go through the findings. Are there exceptional circumstances applying to the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zone?
No.
No. Is there any practical difficulty or undue hardship to the appellant that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes if we make him move his signs? Does literal interpretation of our regulations to deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and same vicinity? No.
Maybe, but,
How so?
well, he gave an example.
Oh, the other place, yeah. Okay.
Shake. I'm not sure if that exactly, but it might be another example of where there's been an exception based on the design at least.
We did hear we had another case in that same area of the Qdoba, I think, having to do with the sign.
The big metal sign on the front.
Setback, yeah. Would this be the minimum variance required to make possible reasonable use of the property?
No.
No, because he said he could deal with moving them if necessary. Okay. Absence of detriment. Would authorizing the variance be of substantial detriment to adjacent property?
No.
No.
So if we grant it, it would not be of detriment.
I believe no.
Which means that we don't fully understand why we why the sign code requires these setbacks.
Right.
Yeah, it's maybe something we don't understand exactly why the setback is there. There must be some structural, architectural reason maybe, I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Well, I think if it was a
Maybe it's
party
better.
wall, potentially the tenant in the middle might have been affected negatively, saying that their sign is too close to their facility, is potentially the intent of the law.
Okay, that's interesting.
Okay.
That makes some sense. So if it was multiple tenants kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
Like the plaza, the space between all the signs on the plaza, that's the equal.
Right. But that doesn't,
Yeah, that's helpful.
but that's not the case with this.
No, not the
building
case here. Is this condition or situation of the specific piece of property or intended use of a general nature?
No.
No. Okay, I think I see which way the wind is blowing. Let's take a vote. Would all in favor, okay, wait.
I'm not
everyone's
voting
voting
tonight,
except
right?
Aaron right now, yeah. Would all in favor of granting the variance raise your right hand? All opposed?
Well, I'm gonna say I'm in favor.
Okay, so we have one in favor.
Right.
All opposed? 4 opposed. So you didn't get the variance, but you can go ahead with,
Sounds like we have path forward at least.
yeah, thank you. The next case is case 2204V at 206 North Columbus Road, the appellant's Memorial Health System of Marietta, I think. The appellant is requesting a variance from Athens City Code 231001, Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls, for construction of a new building. The proposed building is 5 stories tall, asking for a variance to build 5 stories while the maximum height in the zone is 3.5 stories. Requesting a variance to build a building 68 feet tall where the maximum height is 45 feet. Mr. Riggs?
Thank you. This is it's kind of an interesting project. They started out with a emergency room design that was 1 story in height, and decided to invest more into this facility and actually go with, I believe I'm speaking for you guys, but we wanted to do 4 phases basically all at once. And to do that, they came up with a plan for 4 stories with a 5th mechanical room that really makes it about 5 stories in height, a total of 68 feet, where 3.5 stories or 45 feet is the maximum allowed in this zone.
Yeah, I hadn't, so it was initially just a more limited project, and then they decided to.
They want, I believe the appellant wanted to start out with a emergency room, which is needed here in the city, and they decided to go with a full-blown hospital that'll have doctors and probably employ up to maybe 150 new jobs here, which is really good for the city. The appellant could probably speak better than I can on this. So.
Yeah. One other question. I should know this, I guess, but why is there a requirement?
I think there are 2 reasons for this requirement in our code, and I'll just give you my opinion on this because I can't prove it anywhere. I think there are 2 reasons that you want to have height restrictions on your buildings. One is so that your emergency equipment can meet that building, and we would want to do that at the university or anywhere where we do a development. You don't want a structure that's too tall for our tower, for instance, our fire tower. The second reason we would want to do that is for, I'm going to call them view sheds. So you don't want a imposing structure that will block people's view or make change the views or change the aesthetics of our community. In this case, I think we're down about as low as you can get in the city, so I don't really see that as being an issue. And for the fire department, we've checked with Chief Reimer, and his fire equipment can get to all the stories here, and they're actually making some modifications to make it easier for him to get all the way around the building and provide fire protection for this structure.
How many floors is Bromley?
I think it's 5, and the fire equipment can get to that one as well.
Interesting.
It's 5, but I think this is actually taller,
Okay.
because these are 14 feet instead of the typical 10 foot that you'd see for most structures.
Okay.
The reason those are taller is the way they're building it. They're using a modular style. Again, and the appellant can probably talk more about that, but that does make each floor a little bit taller than what you'd normally see.
Okay, thank you.
I have one
Oh,
question.
sorry.
Do you have a sense of whether the same functions could be spread out on the lot?
I'd let the appellant talk about this, but that's not the case here. They're right up against the front right-of-way of the Columbus Road and in the floodway of the Federal Emergency Floodplain Management floodplain in the back, so they're really restricted. The only thing they can do if they want to grow is to go up.
Yeah.
There's really no other way for them to do it.
Yeah.
And can I add to that, that City Council, I think, granted access to the right-of-way already, and so they're allowing parking in the right-of-way because the city's right-of-way goes quite a ways in, so they're very restricted in the space that's available here.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. Other questions for Mr. Ricks? Okay, could the appellant or the appellant's representative come to the podium? Or just a whole bunch of people? And someone, at least one person needs to state name and address.
Sure.
please.
Tila Taylor, Vice President, Memorial Health System for 01 Matthew Street, Marion, Ohio, 45750.
Thank you. So just tell us what's going on.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. Thank you, Mr. Riggs, for a great introduction. And we did start with a one-level freestanding emergency room. And as we evaluated the space, the options, we already have services here in Athens. We are enjoying being over here and members of the community. As we started talking about how our growth would go in, up to 4 phases and evaluating the land, it made sense to go ahead and go up in our initial first phase or 2 of this project. So on the second floor would be ambulatory x-ray facilities and lab draw services with physician offices. The third floor would be physician offices. The fourth floor that will be occupied will be same-day surgery suites.
But the ground floor will be the emergency?
Correct.
Okay.
There'll be a cafe on that floor as well with a laboratory.
Not that it matters, but I'm just curious. With the doctor's offices that you're talking about, are those going to be added or are they going to be moved from other existing offices in the city?
Most will be a net add. There will be
Okay.
a couple services, maybe a couple of the specialties that we already have and haven't recently will move to that location because of the surgery access.
Oh, okay, yeah. Questions?
What size is the facility in Marietta? How many floors is that one?
In our main campus
Yeah,
hospital?
the one right off the freeway, like the emergency room, that building,
Do
is
you
that?
mean Belpre?
Belpre, yeah, Belpre,
Yeah, oh,
yeah.
Belpre, the first floor is our emergency department. Second floor is the ambulatory surgery suites and a physician office.
Okay.
So there's another building, our larger building across the street from that, the Neuro Cancer Center and physician offices. It is 2 stories as well.
Questions? Other questions? Do you have other things to add?
No, we're just really excited to be bringing new services and have a greater presence in Athens. We look forward to employing more of the community, approximately 160 employees. A few of those obviously do work here today, but there's obviously a great add.
But the only thing I could add is, I think, David, you already mentioned it. It's a wonderful site, but it's very limited.
Yeah.
And there's a tremendous amount of investment that the Marietta Memorial is making on this thing. And so the only way we can make the investment into this community is to go higher. So we're hoping that you'll grant us this so that we can go ahead and provide the investments that we're looking to do.
I think he has to state it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right, sorry. You need to give your name and address also.
Okay, I'm sorry. Bob Gessing. My address is 205 Paradise Valley Drive, Alexandria, Ohio.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, John. Other questions? No?
There's a parking facility in the back. the parking garage, but also a parking facility in the back, looks like it's raised up. Is that an example of why there's sort of limited use on this property, or what's the situation with that parking?
Correct. We want to make sure that we provide adequate parking for both patients, family, and staff. And there's very specific needs. The needs for parking functionally for a function like this exceed almost always what the zoning requirements are. And so, again, with that, we actually have a multi-level structure in the front, and that one in the back is really an elevated deck because of the way that the slope drops down, wetlands, and various other things. So that's a great example of how we need to invest in order to provide the parking, because we just don't have enough flat land.
Anything else?
For me.
All right, I guess you can be seated. Thank you. Is there, why is losing all my papers? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of this request? Anyone present who wishes to speak in general comment? Anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition? We got no opposition to any of the, any of our cases tonight.
Knock on
I mean,
wood.
by
Yeah.
like email and so on, that's kind of nice.
Oh, by email too?
I'm not gonna jinx it, I'm not jinxing anything. Okay, so I'm gonna close testimony from the floor unless you want to offer any other remarks. No, okay. Good, so testimony is closed. And who would like to make a motion in this case? Or who would not like to but is willing to anyway?
I'll make a motion if I can find the right place to read here. Okay. I'll make a motion to grant a variance for the appellant from ACC 23.10.01, Table A, schedule of bulk controls for construction of a new building. Proposed building is 5 stories tall, whereas the maximum height is 3.5 stories. Proposed building is 68 feet tall, whereas the maximum height is 45 feet.
Someone second? Kay
And that's at
seconds.
206 North Columbus Road.
Oh, yeah, sorry, thanks.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to mention the address, the
Yeah,
address
that's the
being
one thing.
206 North Columbus Road,
Thank you.
case number 22-04V.
That's the only thing we need, actually, which I should have thought of. Okay, excellent. Let's look at the findings. Are there exceptional circumstances in this situation? Yeah.
Yes.
Space is limited.
Yeah, the space is limited and the nature of the project. Yeah. Practical difficulty or undue hardship if we did not grant the variance.
Yes, they
Yes.
wouldn't be able to do what they're asking to do now, for sure.
Is this an issue of equal property rights?
No.
Wow, that was direct. How so? Oh, well, some other people might want to come and do the same thing. But then that could require a change in code anyway, for this neighborhood, I think.
If I could just put
Yeah.
a point in there, this whole area has problems with floodplain in the back and the right-of-way in the front. So all these folks along this area will run into similar issues here.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is this the minimum of variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property?
Seems to be the case.
For this project, certainly, yeah.
I think so.
Is there any substantial detriment if we authorize the variance to adjacent property?
I don't think so. I think the point Mr. Riggs made about the view shed issue is not at all an issue here. It's a low-lying area. It's not going to obstruct views from anyone else in the area. It would have to be much larger probably for that to be an issue.
Yeah.
It's in a B3 zone, so business zone designed for, expansive projects, and so I don't see any real conflicts there.
I agree.
And I'll add to that there are other medical facilities in that same area. So it's a nice tie.
Oh, yeah, I guess there are, come to think of it.
With HRS and the dental offices.
Yeah,
and
the
such.
dental one.
HRS was the original Hoser facility.
Yep.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And is this of a general nature?
No.
No, it's not.
No.
It's not.
Okay, that's easy. Let's go ahead and vote. All in favor of granting the variance, please raise your right hand. And that's everyone. So 5-4, 0 against. You've got your variance. Then case number 3, Kelly is gonna
Walk away.
put on a different hat. So this case, 2205B at 234 West Washington Street, also known as West End Cider House. Appellant is requesting a variance from Athens City Code 231001, Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls, requesting a 0-foot setback where a 10-foot setback is required. And I had to ask Mr. Riggs, I didn't really understand why this was a problem.
Yeah, if I could, just before we get started on that, I didn't know if you were wanting Aaron to step in as alternate
Yeah,
here.
sorry. So I need to say that.
Put that in
Yeah,
the minutes.
Yeah, make sure that gets in the minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is
okay.
kind of an odd situation here. The appellant had a patio that went all the way to the back property line. Interestingly, our code does not consider a patio or patio walls to be a structure. So he was not in violation of the setbacks with the patio there. He wants to cover that patio now with a roof. Roof is a structure, and to go all the way back and cover the entire patio area, he would need to get a variance from the board.
So I just got a question just for future. So if anyone come in with a back porch for their house and they want to put a roof over it, is it a difference between putting a roof over the patio or putting windows and glass and screens? Is that a different in the structure?
That's a great question. So if I had a resident who put a patio out back that went all the way to the edge of the property, they'd be allowed to do that. It's not part of the code, it's not restricted. But if now they wanted to put a roof over that entire structure, that becomes a structure as far as our code's concerned.
Okay.
And they'd need to come before the board to get a variance.
Like a sunroom,
If
so-
If they put a deck on, that is considered a structure, where a patio is not.
That's interesting.
It's just the way the code's
I
written.
just know summer coming up.
Yep, yep.
It seems sort of arbitrary.
Yes.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
So
A lot
all right,
of
one more question.
a lot of city zoning codes count parking area as a structure, and so you can't be with your parking. You can't be within 10 feet of the property lines, which comes into effect more if you had like a business or something. We don't do that here in the city of Athens. We consider parking areas and patios to be non-structural, so you can go all the way to the property line with those.
So a patio is flat on the ground, and a deck, if it's up
It's
6 to
raised
12
up,
inches,
yeah.
is
Yeah.
all right. Okay. Just preparing for the summer.
Yes, sir.
Get a lot of those coming in.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you. No other questions for Mr. Riggs right now? So appellant, please come to the podium and state your name and address and give us
Just
any,
need to swear.
oh. Well, yeah, I gotta swear you in. Because you weren't sitting out there when,
Oh, all right. What do I
not
need
that
to
we
do?
don't trust you, but do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I will tell the truth.
Thank you. Okay, name and address?
Okay, my name is Kelly Sauber. I'm representing West End Cider House, Athens, Ohio. I live at 84 2nd Street on the west side. I'm just up the hill from the location. So yeah.
Yeah, tell us about your.
All right, so the project is basically, we have a couple reasons that we chose to put a covering over a patio that has been in existence since we opened the location, which was 2013 when we first took over the spot. But we were not the first owner of this business location. There have been many bars in this location, and I can name 5 different owners of the bar since that I'm familiar with prior to our existence. And basically this patio has always been there. But just due to our health circumstances that are going on with COVID, was our primary reason to try to extend our seating with coverage so that we can basically make all-weather seating. for our facility. So that was one main aspect. But we also have, there's a drainage problem in that location, and there's, if anyone's been on that patio, right outside our back door, we have a sump pit that has a pump that collects all that water and pumps it to the storm sewer system. And basically during foul weather, when it rains really hard and power might happen to go out, we have problems with removing that water, and we've had flooding inside the structure. So this is able to divert a large portion of that water. We're only doing about 70-75% coverage on the facility, or on that back patio. So it's not a complete 100% coverage. It's a nice L-shaped, we'll call it a overhang or a deck, cover, roof. But anyways, so we're about 75% coverage. And really, it was just a way for us to try to bring business back, post-COVID. So that's pretty much the extent of it, as far as our reasoning or our thought process on it. We have built this already. I will, make sure everyone's familiar with that up front. And I believe it's a wonderful project. We had Brian Lubeck stop by one day and ask if we had a permit. And I said, Brian, you're asking me, so I know I don't have a permit. And I didn't realize that I would need a permit for an overhang over patio that's existed for 18 decades. So anyways, so as soon as he told me that, I was like, well, I'd like to talk to David. So I spoke with Mr. Riggs, and as soon as that conversation occurred, I contacted our architect, who I've worked with before with Penny Mullen at RVC, and Penny got right on it, and we have filed our plans for state approval. Presently, the state office is quite backlogged, so we still do not have state approval for these plans. But we have submitted the plans nonetheless to the city and to the state, of course, waiting for approval for those plans. So, and that's added a substantial amount that was unexpected to the project, but we're okay with the permitting. I was a little shocked that I needed state-approved plans, in particular for an overhang, just for the record. But nonetheless, here we are. So we filed the permit as soon as we realized that we had to file a permit, and I apologize for that oversight, but nonetheless, here we are.
It's a familiar story.
Yeah.
When did you reopen?
Post-COVID?
Yeah.
Well, we finally, about 3 months ago, actually filled our seating back to about 90%.
Okay.
So from March 15th of 2020, we were shut down completely for 90 days. Then once we reopened, we went from an interior seating of about 51 down to about 26, and just maintaining that social distancing at that point in time. And we just put in about, it wasn't even 3 months ago, probably 2.5 months, maybe 10 weeks ago, we finally updated our seating so that we're actually at full capacity. It was basically the same time that the mask mandate was put down for the city.
So you've been using the patio all along?
We have, but with limited
Depending on
capacity
weather,
just due to weather. Sure.
Okay. Questions?
So I got a question, Mr. Riggs. So if we grant a variance and then the state comes back with something else, what would that do to our variance for the city? Because I didn't know the state had to approve it. Maybe is it?
You could still allow the variance, and the state then would have whatever their regulations are. They don't care about setbacks for the structures. They're more about, because this is a public building, that they want to make sure that it's structurally sound so that something doesn't fall and hurt somebody. They're more worried about that. So I'm guessing it would be foundations and beam size and that kind of stuff.
Right.
They really don't care about the how far it is from the property line.
Right.
But they okay the plans?
They have not yet,
But
but
that's what they're meant to
we
do,
expect
yeah.
them to do that the way it was submitted, or we're very close to the way it was submitted.
Yeah, this is, it's certainly over-engineered. If anyone's driven by and noticed the facility, we're using up locally harvested hardwoods that are oversized. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, it's a nice log structure that is really almost too large for the beams, the weight that it's supporting, honestly. But it's, but it looks cool, and my builder is Jeff Westerbarger in Athens. He overbuilds things, but he does wonderful work. So
I was
throw
thinking
that
just
out
like
there.
a green corrugated plastic
Oh,
thing
no.
for Athens.
Yeah, no, this is main support uprights are, there are 7 6x6 main uprights that are built on concrete pylons that are 2.5, 3 feet in the ground. You know, the main support beams between these upright posts are 2x12s. Rough cut, so that's not nominal lumber, it's a full 2 inch by 12 inches. It's just a beautiful solid structure. So as far as the integrity and the safety, I'm not worried about the state saying, oh no, because it's above and beyond anything that they would anticipate. There's no electrical additions, so there's nothing in that respect. As far as plumbing, there's nothing in that area as well. So it's simply structural as far as the plan approval is concerned.
Any other questions? Okay. Go ahead and have a seat,
All right,
and
thank you.
let me look for my things again. Is anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Come on up and state your name and address.
I'm Joe Merkel. I live at 8 North Schaefer, the adjoining property on Schaefer Street, and I support the project. It does look terrific. Kelly's a great neighbor. I don't have any objections.
That's very helpful, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And if I may add to Joe and Phil's, because they've been great, and I love having them.
Come on
get
up.
into this.
Come back to the
Come
podium.
on up.
Come on, Kelly, you know the protocol.
Sorry. Yes, they've been great, and I did work with them. They did have a concern about gutter cleaning because this facility, this roofing does make it difficult to put ladders through their gutters. So we worked out so that I will help maintain their gutters as well, so that they don't have that concern.
That's
To
great.
clean the gutters on that side. Yes, on that side. Just on that side. And I did speak with Richard Games, who is the owner or the head director of Sojourners. He's also in favor of the project. And I also spoke with, Guy Phillips, and I have a letter from, we do not own this structure, so Guy Phillips is the primary owner.
Oh, I didn't realize that, okay.
So we're tenants, and I have a letter that I can pass around that has his approval as well.
I think we got it.
I think there's one in here about.
Yeah, I think we got it in here.
Okay,
So,
all right. So,
Okay, that's probably all we need.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
you're welcome.
Then I will close testimony from the floor. And who would like to make a motion?
I make a motion, let's see if I'm doing it right. For case 22-05V, located at 234 West Washington Street, granting a variance for Zone B1. Should I say the whole thing, West End Cider House?
Yeah, you don't have to, just the address and
Okay.
then the variance, yeah.
Okay, the appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 23-10-01 Table A, scheduled bulk controls, requesting a 0-foot setback, whereas a 10-foot setback is required.
Someone second?
I second.
Thank you, guys. It is sort of weird that it doesn't say for what the setback, I mean, that it's a roof or whatever.
Right.
For the
It's considered
construction.
it's considered a structure by our code.
Yeah, okay. Okay, let's go through the findings. Are there exceptional circumstances associated with the property that do not apply generally to other properties or uses in the same zone? I would say so, yeah.
Okay, so?
Yeah. Practical difficulty and undue hardship if we were to prevent him from building his roof
Yeah, I think so.
for the purpose of his business, yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Is this an issue for equal property rights?
No,
No.
no complaints from the neighborhood.
Is it a minimum variance?
Yes.
I think so.
Think so, yeah. Absence of detriment, we've heard from a neighbor who has no problem with it, and we certainly haven't heard any complaints from anyone else.
Landlord's in agreement with him? huh?
Yep. And is it of a general nature?
No.
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 Oh,
All right, that's easy. Will all who wish to approve the variance please raise right hand? 5. Thanks for voting, Aaron. We got 5-0.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
You got some very good questions, Aaron. You were on your A game today.
Well, just, I know the patio.
I don't know about you guys, I'm gonna head over and use the patio.
I know, that's going to be really nice.
I know the
I'm excited about it.
summer's coming up.
Back there, I've looked out the window at it, but I haven't actually been.
I haven't either.
So it's so nice out tonight, I think I'm gonna go over and.
That's
do
a good
exactly
idea.
that.
Is it done recording?
Do we gotta adjourn?
Now we have to do the minutes.
Yeah.
February meeting?
Yeah.
Meeting minutes?
We have to approve the minutes. So the February meeting, I had notes on this. Do we know who was here? Oh, here it is,
was
okay.
here. I was-
Members present, me, Robert, Kelly, Kay, Aaron. So we don't, I mean, we
We
could make
could bring
Kelly
him, Kelly,
come
back if
back.
we need
Kelly
him,
should
but
vote on the
I don't think it's
minutes?
He
necessary.
doesn't have to. He could if he wants. He doesn't have to.
we
Yeah.
have 4 people.
Yeah, we have 4, and I don't think there's gonna be any objection to it. So with someone, we've already seen Kay, I think, made a correction, and that correction has been made, or maybe a
Yes.
couple corrections.
Yeah.
That was the meeting for Morris Avenue, correct? That was from February.
Yeah,
Yes.
Morris, is that the only one?
Yeah.
I guess that's true, okay.
The other,
It was Anwood too. So it was the 2 houses. The guy that had the 2 pieces, he had the adjoining property. Guy wanted to extend his kitchen.
Yeah, okay. So everyone has seen the minutes, shall we go ahead and vote, to everyone wishing, except for Joe, right, because he wasn't here. Those present, who were present at the meeting who wish to approve the minutes, raise your right hand.
proof.
Right hand. All right, we got, the minutes are approved. And at this time, I call the meeting adjourned.
Thank you, guys.